Hey, what's up guys, my name is Mike and welcome to the Tipsy Goat. Today we're looking at a new card from the upcoming Magic set Final Fantasy, and it is the real bad man himself, Sephiroth. Sephiroth is one of the coolest villains in all video game history in my opinion, and Wizards did not disappoint with this card. The main team of the deck will be Aristocrat, and if you're wondering like me, why is it called that? I looked it up. Aristocrats is a magic deck archetype that seeks to sacrifice its own creatures, especially many low cost and or token creatures, to accumulate game winning benefits. Aristocrats deck use a combination of sacrifice outlets and cards that trigger when the creature enter and or leave the battlefield. The archetype derives its name from cards such as Cartel Aristocrat and Vulcanwrath Aristocrat, which reward the player for sacrificing their own creatures, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So, let's see what Sephiroth does. For a whopping 3 mana, you get, whenever Sephiroth enters or attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, draw a card. Whenever another creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. If this is the 4th time this ability has resolved this turn, transform Sephiroth. So, I repeat, for 3 mana, you get a built-in sacrifice outlet and a draw on ETB and attack, but he also has a Blood Artist effect built into him. If 4 creatures die, you get to transform Sephiroth, turning him into Sephiroth, One-Winged Angel. He has Flying Supernova. As this creature transforms into Sephiroth, One-Winged Angel, you get an emblem. Whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Whenever Sephiroth attacks, you may sacrifice any number of other creatures. If you do, draw the many cards. So, now we get a literal Blood Artist emblem. Could come in handy because as far as I know, emblems can't be removed. And an insane draw effect on attack. Now let's look at some of the key cards of the deck. We want to make sure we trigger Sephiroth's transform trigger as soon as possible, because we're building a mono black aristocrat deck. Fortunately, this is very easy because of cards like Accursed Marauder, Merciless Executioner and Plaguecrafter. Whenever these creatures ETB, each player sacrifices a creature, meaning Sephiroth will transform. Just make sure every opponent has a creature on board. Now, Sephiroth has a nice draw effect on him, so we're going to need fodder to sacrifice to him. Cards like Endrixar, Ogre Slumlord and Fumulus work great for getting a lot of tokens, but my absolute favorites are the 2-mana token generators, cards like Bitter Blossom, Dreadhorde Invasion and Jadar. These cards make sure you get the ETB draw when you cast Sephiroth on turn 3. I love to see it. Things will be dying on the board, on our side and definitely on our opponent's side, so let's make sure we do more damage than we already do with Sephiroth. Cards like Bastion of Remembrance, Funeral Room and Marionette Apprentice will damage our opponents when something hits our graveyard. And cards like Massacre Worm, Vein Ripper and Sir Conrad will damage our opponents whenever a creature hits a graveyard. Alright, let's take a look at the stats of the deck. There are 38 lands, 35 excluding MDFCs. I think this is the sweet spot. Sephiroth itself is just 3 mana and gets to draw us enough cards, so we do not need more land in my opinion. Card drawn 9. Now this is somewhat low, I know, but Sephiroth gives us an insane amount of card draw, so we should be fine I guess. The ramp 11. This is a decent amount of ramp in my opinion. We want to be doing things on turn 3 or 4 with that amount of mana, so some cards that ramp also do other things. Removal is 18. There's 4 target removal, 13 edict effects and 1 or 2 whole board wipes. This is where we go heavy. The 13 edict effects will make sure we trigger Sephiroth and remove as many creatures as we can without killing our commander. 13 might be a bit excessive, so you could go heavier on the target removal, but hey, value baby. There's 1 protection spell in the deck and 8 cards that return a creature card from our graveyard. And for the fun part of the deck, there are 33 theme cards in the deck. For our main theme, Aristocrat, there are 9. This sounds low, but we have Sephiroth at the helm, so we should be good. Cards that make tokens, 15, and 8 Sephiroth goodness. And to finish that off, 1 whole Gary. He has his own stat line, I guess. Alright, the numbers are done. Let's take a look at the whole deck. Lands will always be the most boring part of a deck in my opinion, but playing mono black gives us a pretty awesome selection of lands. Of course, we will include the classic combo, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth with Cabal covers, and the lesser fun cousin of them all, Cabal Stronghold. Since we are playing a monocarded deck, we can't forget the amazing Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, and because we are playing a sacrifice token deck, Phyrexian Tower is a must-have. If you have any of these lands on the board, we would like to abuse those cards, so that's why I've added the Thespian State. With this land we can either copy one of our lands or one of our opponent's lands. Playing a mono deck makes sure that it at worst taps for 1 colorless, but the ceiling is pretty high. I've added a War Room, which could come in handy if we need some extra card draw. Since we're playing mono deck, it just costs us 1 life instead of 3 or 4. I've added the Spymaster's Vault, which gives us some nice card selection and could even boost our creatures. Playing black also means we get to have some recursion in our land base. The best one, Academy's Awakening, return a creature card from the battlefield, multiple even, At worst, it's a land that enters the battlefield for 3 life. I've added Memorial to Folly. It's a land that enters the battlefield tapped and pay 3 mana, sacrifice it to return our creature card from our graveyard to our hand. This works great because we have a lot of edict creatures that we will sacrifice to itself, so getting to use them again is great. I've added a Tekanuma Abandoned Mire. Does the same thing, but it's a channel ability on the land, so it doesn't need to be on the battlefield. There's a Mortuary Mire and a Witch's Cottage that return a creature card from our graveyard to our hand or top of the library. Baratur and Westfield Abbey can create us some tokens, and the latter can also turn it a 9/9 indestructible if we have enough tokens to sacrifice. For MDFC we also have Felder Profane and Maliki Rebirth. One is a removal card that could also enter untapped, and the other is a Recursion card that can either enter tapped. There's also a Command Beacon for when it gets a little bit too expensive to cast Sephiroth. And last but not least, my absolute favorite land in the deck, Sanctum of Eternity. This land can return Sephiroth from the battlefield to our hand for just 3 mana, so we can do the whole transform thing over and over again. I know it's not a land, but it's also not ramp. It searches for a land. It's an expedition map, since we have so many good lands in the deck, so it might be nice to find a certain land in a certain situation. Oh yeah, there's also a Reliquary Tower and 17 Swamps in the deck. For the ramp package, we have the classics like Soul Ring and Arcane Signet. The mono black classics, Crypt Gas taps for spam for 2 black, a Dark Ritual to have an explosive turn, and a Jab Medallion to reduce all black spells. There's also a Bontus Monument. This card reduces our black creature spells by 1 and burn our opponents whenever we cast a black creature spell. This deck has about 34 creatures, so this card will work great. There's a Black Market collection, draws us cards, gives us treasures, and creates a shapeshifter that we can sacrifice. Again, one of the best black cards in the game. For a little bit more expensive ramp, but I think these were great in the deck, is Kirik, Son of Yakmat, letting us pay 2 life per black pip in a spell. Costs a lot of life, but we're gaining a lot of life with Sephiroth, so it should be fine. And there's also a Throne of Eldraine, a 5 mana artifact that can tap for 4 of any one color, but also draws us 2 cards. The last 2 pieces of ramp are more in theme. They're Pitiless Plunderer, whenever something on our board dies, we create a treasure, and a Warren Soul Trader. For 1 life and sacrifice a creature, we create a treasure token. Now, let's get into the drawing of the cards. As said, a BMC and a Throne of Eldraine and a War Room. There's a Skull Clamp. This card is always good in a deck with a lot of tokens. There's Ayada, First of Lochtwain. Burns our opponents whenever a black creature enters the battlefield. Again, we are playing a lot of tokens, so the damage is good. And it just straight out wins the game with another card in the deck. Oh yeah, we can also sacrifice a creature to draw a card. There's a Harvest of Souls. Whenever a non-token creature dies, draw a card. Not just on our board, a creature dies. So this card turns our edict creatures into potentially drawing 4 cards. Then there are 2 cards that do multiple things. Liliana, Dreadhorde General. When a creature we control dies, draw a card. Can create a 2/2 Zomboid, lets everyone sacrifice 2 creatures, and even resets our opponent board. And then there is a Season of Loss. We can choose 5 pal worth of modes. For 1 pal, each player sacrifices a creature. For 2 pal, draw a card for each creature that died on our control this turn. And for 3 pals, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in our graveyard. And of course, Necropotence, the best black card draw in the game. The 3 black pips are always tricky in any multicolor deck, but since we're playing mono black, not a problem. For the third removal, we have Felder Profane, EMDFC land. Attrition turns our tokens into removal for just 1 mana. There's a Toxic Deluge and a Massacre Worm for board wipe effects, and there's the backside of Shoulder the True Scriptures. And now, let's really get into what Sephiroth wants to do, the edict effects. Of course, we have the classics, Demon's Disciple, Merciless Executioner, and Flashback Marauder. These will all transform Sephiroth whenever an opponent has a creature out, but since we are playing these at turn 3 or 4, there should be enough creatures on board to make it happen. We also have a Playcrafter, which does the same thing, but if someone doesn't have a creature, I have to discard a card. There's a Gravelighter, which also does the same thing, but if something died already, we draw a card instead. We'll be mostly using it for its edict effect though, but you never know when you might need a card. And of course, the better version of all these cards, Accursed Marauder, does the same thing, but it's 1 mana cheaper, and makes sure our opponents have to sacrifice a non-token creature. There's a Flare of Malice. If you can sacrifice a creature for the cost, this will trigger Sephiroth for free. Rankle, Master of Prankles, lets everyone sacrifice a creature but could also discard and draw cards. And a Wasteland Raider. This does the same thing as the other Marauder cards, but for 4 mana. But when we have enough mana to burn, we can also pay its squad cost to get more copies of the card, which makes the 1 extra mana worth it in my opinion. There's a Season of Loss, we already ran through that card, and a Shoulder. This does not trigger Sephiroth on its own, but it will get you real close. The backside of the card is just amazing, so it's worth to play it. And to finish the sacrificing part of the deck, we can't forget about everyone's favorite, Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos. These two cards make sure when something on our board dies, things on our opponent's board die as well. These two cards are probably my favorite cards in Magic, and getting to play them without just being an asshole and actually make them useful in the deck is just great. Let's see what we will be sacrificing. Barad-dûr and Westfall Abbey are the lands that can create tokens. Then there are the 2-mana token generators that will make sure we trigger Sephiroth's ETB ability, so we get to draw a card. There are the black classics like Bitter Blossom, Dreadhorde Invasion, Jadar Ghoulcaller of Nephalia, and for 3 mana, Ophiomancer. For 2 mana, there's also a Genesis Chamber. Whenever a player casts a creature spell, they create a 1/1 mirror token. Giving our opponent's creature normally isn't that good, but more things to die is always great in this deck. Also for 2 mana, of course, Orcish Bowmaster. This card will ping our opponents when they draw more than 1 card, but also create us an Orc army. Then we have 2 3-mana cards. A newer card from Foundations, 9 Lives Familiar. This comes in with 8 revival counters, and when it dies, it comes back with 1 fewer revival counter. Not sure if it's the best card in the deck, but it's just one of those flavor cards that looks like fun. And it's a recurring sacrifice target. Then we also have Avenger of the Fallen, a new card from Tarkir Dragonstorm that has Mobilize X, where X is the number of creature cards in our graveyard. Then we have the more expensive cards. Fuminous, the Infestation, creates us a 1/1 insect whenever a player sacrifices a creature, meaning 1 Edict effect will create us 4 tokens to sacrifice to Sephiroth to draw us cards. Ogre Slumlord creates us 1/1 red token whenever a non-token creature dies, and Endrexar will create us 1/1 Thralls whenever we cast a creature spell. However, when we have more than 7 Thralls, we have to sacrifice Endrexar, but we should be fine by keeping the Thralls to a lower number with just Sephiroth alone. Then there's Liliana, of course, letting us draw cards and creating Zomboids. And the final card, Plague of Vermin. This card lets us pay life for red tokens. With this deck, we'll be gaining a lot of life, so we should be able to get out 30 or more reds, which we can sacrifice Sephiroth to draw 30 more cards, and to do 30 more damage. It's one of the finishes in the deck. Alright, now we have things to sacrifice, let's do some damage with them. Keep in mind, Sephiroth itself has a Blood Artist effect on him, or an emblem, where you transform Sephiroth. We have the classics Blood Artist and Sir Conrad the Grim. Also, look at this amazing new print from the Final Fantasy set. It's just chef's kiss. There's a Bloodchief Ascension. Takes a bit to set up, but this card can win you games. One of my favorites. There's a Bastion of Remembrance, a Zulaport effect, but gives you a body to sacrifice. Speaking of creating bodies, Marionette Apprentice deals damage whenever an artifact or creature enters our graveyard, and also gives us a body to sacrifice. Perfect card to play at turn 2, and then turn 3 Sephiroth and sack the token and draw a card. A Meathook Massacre for the removal, and or just the effect for 2 mana. A newer card from Duskborn, a room called Funeral Room, has the same effect as Zulaport Cutthroat, but if our graveyard is full, we can unlock the next room and get them all back. For the more expensive cards, we have Massacre Worm, gives our opponents -2/-2 on their creatures, and whenever something dies, that player loses 2 life. And of course, there's a Blood Artist on steroids, the Vein Ripper. Now, since things are dying on our side as well, we'd like to return those cards. We have Academia's Awakening, Memorial to Folly, Mortuary Mire, Technuma, and a Witch's Caudy as the lands of return creatures. A Resurrection Reclamation, for 1 mana to play and 2 mana to activate, we get to constantly return creature cards from our graveyard. So with enough mana, a Cursed Marauder can become a 1-sided board wipe. There's a Chthonian Nightmare, for 2 mana we get an Shaman that gives us 3 energy. We can then pay X energy, return Chthonian Nightmare to our hand, and sacrifice a creature to return a creature card to the battlefield with mana value X. Kind of does the same thing as Resurrection Reclamation, but we need to sacrifice a creature to continue the effect. The target will always be an Edict effect, but if needed, we can always return Sephiroth from the graveyard to the battlefield. And then we have the sequel to the Meathook Massacre, Meathook Massacre 2. For XX and 4 black mana, whenever Meathook Massacre 2 enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices X creatures. This is not the main reason we play it though, but it could come in handy. We play it for the other 2 abilities. Whenever a creature we control die, we may pay 3 life and it comes back to our board with a finality counter. And the same goes for our opponents. But if they don't pay 3 life, we get that creature on our board. So I see it like an extra 3 damage when something dies, and as best case, we get the creature. Then we have 2 cards that return whole graveyards to our battlefield. Awakening Hall, the other side of Funeral Room, and the last part of the saga of the True Scriptures from Shuldred. Then, we're almost at the end. If you guys watched this long, thank you so much. And please subscribe if you haven't, it would help us out a lot. Thank you. There's a Drift Note, Carnage Dominus. When something dies and a permanent var is triggered, which will happen a lot of the time, it will trigger an additional time. Our whole strategy is things dying and dealing damage, so this will make that twice as fast. The most expensive card in the deck will be Shuldred the Apocalypse, money-wise. Draw a card, gain to life, opponents draw a card, they lose to life. It's so good. It's just really expensive, but if you have it, just play it. There's a Gisa Glorious Resurrector. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, we exile it, and at the beginning of our upkeep, we put those cards under our control. And the last card of the deck, everyone's favorite, with all the sacrificing that is being done. You guessed it, it's Staggered. God of Fright, I don't think I need to explain why it's in there. It's just really good with all the sacrificing we're doing. Oh yeah, and there's also Gary. Could potentially win you the game. Because when it enters the battlefield, the amount of black pips you have, you do damage and you gain that much life. It's always good. So yeah, that is the deck. I think it's such a cool commander that does everything this team wants to do. It will probably be my favorite commander to come out this year. It has to be some very spicy cards to come out to beat this. A few things to add. It is a bracket 3 deck on purpose. It's really easy to swap out cards to make it bracket 4. Black has so many good Gamechangers. You can add a One Ring, an Ancient Tomb, those cards you can easily include because you don't need to worry about your life as much. I chose to keep the Gamechangers that I did because I really wanted to keep it as black as possible. And what I also like about Sephiroth is that you have part of the classic black insta win in the command zone. Get yourself a Fraction Altar and a Gravecrawler, and another zombie of course, and win the game on the spot. Playing all the tutors and rituals and you're good to go. Not sure if it is, but it sounds EDH viable, don't quote me on that one. So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to check out our YouTube channel for more MTG content and Final Fantasy gameplay coming up where I am playing this deck. My name is Mike, and I will see you next time. Cheers!